And today we're doing Stitch Pink 2020 Block 6. What was this one called?
Baby Boom.
Baby Boom. Okay. Here's the first row. All sewn together. All the way down to the end.
Okay, we're here to do block 6 today. It's called Baby Boom, and we're going to be sewing a lot of triangles today. So I've got my pieces all cut out, labeled with my alphabetties. The first step is to assemble 10 ABs, which are the white and the lighter pink, and 10 ACs, which is the white and the little bit darker pink. So you will assemble those to make 10 half square triangle units. And then you're going to be putting those units together.
It's lots of half square triangles.
It's a lot of half square triangles. I'm going to turn this around so I can see it right side up. Okay. So you're going to assemble 10 units that look like that.
And do they all look like that? There's no reversed ones?
They all look like that.
Okay.
We're going to find out shortly.
The dark red or the dark pink is always on the left. I would say so. All right.
I'll get back with you on that in just a second. All right, I got my half square triangles together, but I want to tell you that it said to trim them to 2 5/8 of an inch after you made your half square triangles. And I was literally shaving off just like tiny little bitty pieces. Just,
like 2 or 3 threads?
They're not very big. So they were pretty close anyway. And I also want to say, this is a lot of triangles. Don't get discouraged about this because I'm not a fan of just working with triangles all the time either. But they're really not that hard. You just have to make sure you don't distort your fabric by pulling it and tugging it. And all of this is done just one little step at a time. So don't look at this pattern and get discouraged thinking, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do that or not, because you can do this. You have this.
It looks pretty involved.
It is pretty involved, but really, it's just little bitty parts at a time. So I'm going to show you. So I made my half slivers. That's the word I was trying to think of. I made my half square triangles. I shaved those slivers off to get them to 2 5/8 of an inch. I sewed them all together with the dark on the left and the lighter one on the right. Now I'm just going to look at my diagram and I'm just going to lay these out. And you really set this together in a diagonal first. So we're going to lay these out. We're going to sew the diagonal row together first, and we're going to sew the 2 other sides together. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So let's see if I can get this going right. I've got 1, 2, 3 going that way. So every time I do this, I think, oh, I'm putting a puzzle together. And then you turn these the other way, and you continue on that way. So you have 3 this way. And I should probably kind of space them out a little bit so you can see. All right, then you take the F and the E quarter square triangles and you're going to put them together right at the top end of this. So I need an F here and I need an E over here. Just like that. So there's
Okay,
one
something
corner.
I'm noticing is that all of the dark pinks are still on the same side and all of the light pinks are on the other side.
Very good. I hadn't even made that connection, but there you go. And I'm going to do the same thing down here at this end. So I'm going to I just have to look at my thing to make sure it's going in the right direction. There you go. All right. So I've got my center. You can see that right. I know it's upside, the letters are upside down to you, but it can go in any direction, so it's okay. So then I'm going to lay 2 of them out over here. I'm going to lay 2 of them out over here. I'm going to do the same thing with the quarter square triangle units. And on this side. All right, now I've got my D quarter square triangles left. So they actually go in here. So now you can kind of see this block exploded out, and you can see how it makes a square.
So what's the next step for them to sew?
Okay, so the next step for you to sew is we're going to sew.
Did they already sew all their half square triangles together?
I told them to.
Okay, well if they didn't, they should,
Right.
And now they should have.
Right. After you sew your half square triangles, you trim them to 2 5/8. Then you sew them together into pairs like this, with the dark on the left, the light on the right. Then, first thing you want to do on here, we're going to sew this middle section. And then we'll sew this section, and we'll sew this section, and then we'll put them all together. So, first thing we want to do is sew these. Now they look kind of like flying geese with just 2 different colors in the big triangle. So we're going to sew those together, and we're going to sew these 2 together at the end, and then sew that to the end of each of these. Okay. And I'll come back with all of this sewn together, and I'll sew these together, then I'll show you how they go together. Actually, you'll just match the seam, so yeah, we'll do that
easy
part
enough.
First.
All right.
All right. Okay. So I got my center unit together. So I've got it laid out. While I was sewing those, I went ahead and just sewed these units together as well, and these other little corners. So all my little half square triangle units are sewn together. My quarter square triangles are sewn together for the corners of the block. So I just want to show you how you lay it out now. And the next thing you need to do is sew both of these ends to the center. And on the pattern, the arrows show which way it should be pressed. And she says, or press open.
And you pressed open, didn't you?
I like to press open. But the arrows show the way you should press if you want them to nestle together in the seams. What were you going to say?
So you are pinning to match that center seam, correct?
I match up my center seam together when I do this. And I want you to notice when I do this, that's why I'm doing it now, is that it hangs over on each side. So your 1/4 of an inch is going to be on each side. So you're matching up that center seam, and then it's going to be placed exactly where it needs to be. So the next part we need to do is sew these 2 ends on. I'm also going to go ahead and sew these onto these, the 1/4 square triangle units onto the ones that look like flying geese now, the half square triangle units, because you have to do that before you can sew these other triangles on. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. When I come back, I'll show you how to sew these on, and then you just sew them together to the center.
Okay.
All right, I got my little corners onto my block, my little 1/4 square triangles sewn onto the ends of my half square triangle units. Now I'm going to show you how to put these, they're kind of like setting triangles, I guess, onto this unit.
Like
so
your side setting.
We're going to lay it over here, and once again, we're going to line up this 90-degree angle right here. So this is where I want to pin it, right along here. So go ahead and start doing that. So I'll sew this triangle to this side. Then I'll press it out, and I'll sew this triangle onto this side. Do the same thing. And then I've already done the other side for you to show you what it looks like afterward.
Does it matter which side you have up when you're sewing that?
Well, it does. I like to have this side up. I'll show you on this one.
On this one, maybe?
Yes. I should have pinned it the other way, because I like to have this side up, because I like to see that I'm going, my seam, my 1/4 inch seam is going to go right through this little, right at the bottom of this little point right here.
Yeah.
Because when it does that, then I know my point's going to be right where it needs to be. I want to show you something on this one. I tried this 4 times and it's still not right at the corner.
I think it's close enough.
I think it's close enough too, but I'm just letting you know, I use a seam ripper all the time. It looks like I just sew it and bring it over here and it's done. That's not the way it goes. Lisa and I were just talking a while ago about how long we've been quilting. We started in the 80s. So we've been quilting for about 40 years, haven't we?
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to be honest with you. When I saw this block, I thought, oh my goodness, look at all those triangles. But I told you at the beginning, these are a lot of triangles, but you can do this. And look, you can do this because it just turns into little half square triangles. And then it turns into a little triangle made from 2 quarter square triangles. And then you sew this other triangle on here. So
taking it a step at a time made it doable.
Taking it a step at a time is how you never put a block together all at once. You do little parts at a time. So that's what makes it doable. Don't be discouraged if you have to rip out and do something over again, because I've done that. I do that all the time, in fact.
Okay, so what are you going to do next?
After you sew these onto these quarter square triangles onto this unit to make it look like this big triangle, now we have to put this onto the center of our block. It's going to be very easy to do because we have all these seams to match up. So when I lay this over, my center is already going to be matched. I'm going to center it to this seam, the one that was in the center that made it look like an hourglass block.
Yeah.
And then I've got this seam over here to match up as well. So it gets your big triangle centered with this middle strip.
Why do you put 2 pins in?
I like, first of all, I like to have, I'm going to sew from this end down. I like to have the first one in because it's going to hold these seams down where I want them instead of me sewing. Sometimes you'll sew over one and it'll bend it the other way. I don't want to bend the other way.
Yeah.
So I pin this one down first. I don't want this one to move when I unpin this one. So I just want it to stay in its same place. I pin a lot. So I know Lisa doesn't like to pin.
I don't. Of course, I used to sew opposite of Debbie, and she's very fast at everything she does. And so that was my shortcut. If I could do it without pinning, I could maybe keep caught up with her.
I don't know how true that is, but but I like to pin. And I mean, even with pinning, it still doesn't come out exactly right, and I'll have to redo it sometimes, and that's okay. It's okay to have to redo it sometimes. No one's perfect. But see, now it looks like those are lined up pretty well.
Yep, it does.
So that's what you'll do to finish your block.
Okay, so we're ready to go sew.
All right. All right, I have this all sewn together, and you notice it's not real pretty on the edges. And it measures right about 12.5 inches like it's supposed to. My corners seem to match up all right. My points are okay. So I just want to show you what I'm going to do with this outside edge. I've got all these little things and they don't all meet up. I'm going to go ahead and trim those off. If my block doesn't come out exactly 12.5, I'm not that concerned about it because I know I can make it work. So what I want to do is just make sure when I trim this each side off, I'm going to do one side at a time. I'm not going to put a 12.5 inch block over it. I want to make sure that it's 1/4 inch from this point to this outside edge. So I want to clean these edges up. And you see, I don't have to trim much off of here. It doesn't even come out to the edge over here. That's okay. So this 1/4 inch mark is on this point. This 1/4 inch mark is on this point. So I'm going to go ahead and trim that off. I'm going to turn around and do all 4 sides that way.
So what would you do if it didn't quite measure at 1/4 inch when you put it on that little point that you're looking at?
What do you mean doesn't quite? Larger or smaller?
What if it wasn't quite a 1/4 inch?
That's okay. Whenever I pin it to sew it to my next block, I will know that that one's not quite. That not 1/4 inch is going to be in my seam allowance.
Okay.
So even if it's let's see, a little, it's between 1/8 and 1/4. That's okay because it's just part of the seam allowance. Look, that little. Oh, it did get trimmed off. It was just laying there. All right. So I'm going to keep turning my block. See how much nicer that's looking now? And see, this isn't quite. I didn't want to trim that off because, see, this is not quite a 1/4 inch.
I see.
So that's one of those examples. So I'm going to keep going on around. I'm just making sure the 1/4 inch is there and it's there.
You're also taking your little ears off with that, aren't you?
So it's going to look a lot cleaner. Well, maybe. In theory, it's going to look a lot cleaner. Here, they just didn't get disconnected from it. Okay.
That looks pretty.
There's my baby boom block.
Very pretty.
And that, I'm not going to lie, was not one that, and see, it's just maybe 1/8 of an inch off.
If that.
If that. That's, I mean, that comes out pretty close. Still just about 1/8 of an inch maybe. I'm not concerned with that. I know I'll make up for that in the seam allowance. I can take care of that whenever I'm sewing it together. So I'm not going to lie. This one wasn't one of the easiest ones, but look, it's doable. But
Yep.
It might be kind of nice to sit down and relax with a nice glass of wine after this. So feel free. Thanks for joining us.
All right.
See you tomorrow for the next block.
I didn't have that on your face. Say that again, please.
I'll see you tomorrow for the next block.
All right. Sorry. Technical issue.